FHA loans just got way easier to use in 2025 and nobody's talking about it. We're not just talking loan requirements, we're diving into how to maximize an FHA loan to fit your goals, not just the lender's checklist. So in this video, I'll walk you through the 5 pillars of an FHA loan, from ADU income to the biggest mistake buyers make, and even talk about the big, beautiful bill. Plus, I've got a bonus scenario at the end about how to buy 2 homes in 5 years, starting with FHA. And by the way, I'm Nathan, helped over 500 families, bought and renovated over 15 units, and mortgage is what I do all day long. Okay, the first pillar of FHA loans is the property requirements, which is why it's way easier to use in 2025. And if you've been waiting for the right time to use FHA, this might be it. Let me explain. So why is it different in 2025? Let's say you're at a pizza party. There's 1 pizza on the table and 10 hungry people. You're not getting the best slice. Let's be real here, because everyone's gonna take a piece as soon as they can. That was the housing market for the past few years. Lots of buyers, barely any sellers. That meant multiple offers on every home, and sellers could be picky. If your offer had FHA financing, it often went straight to the bottom of the pile, which is the sad truth. And why is that? Because listing agents, the agents working for the sellers, tend to favor conventional or cash offers because they were more, let's call it, certain. And the listing agent may have had bad experiences with FHA appraisals, which come with stricter rules like no peeling paint, no broken railings, no exposed wires, etc. Which I think is, in my opinion, should be the bare minimum for a house anyways, and that should be repaired. But, you know, tomato, tomato. And sellers also don't like to hear you need to fix something before this can close. But here's what's changed. This chart shows in 2025, there are now nearly 500,000 more sellers than buyers. This means homes are sitting longer, which also means for you, the buyer, you finally have more leverage and power. So if you're the only offer on the table, that FHA offer is now looking really good to the seller. So think of that pizza party that we're at, right? We're flipping the roles. Now you have 10 slices of pizza available and 2 people are hungry. So your odds are a lot better now to get a few slices. This leads me to the next thing. So what can you actually buy with an FHA loan? Most people think FHA equals small starter home, but here's the truth. You can use FHA to buy a 1 to 4 unit property. You can live in one, rent out the others. It's called house hacking. Your tenants help you pay for the mortgage, and I actually did that for my very first house. And if I could go back in time, I would absolutely do that again. The other thing you can buy is a home with an ADU, which is a granny flat or guest house. And did you know FHA even lets you use 75% of the projected rent from the ADU to help you qualify? So let's say you have a guest house that could bring in like $2,000 a month, and that's gonna be verified by an appraiser, by the way. Then the lender can use 75% of that, which is $1,500 a month, as rental income. So more income means higher qualifications. But let's say you don't have an ADU on the house that you're looking to buy. You can actually build that ADU. And FHA has a renovation loan called a 203K. And now you can use actually 50% of that projected ADU income towards qualifying. So again, let's use that example, that $2,000 a month for that guest house. So that means you can use $1,000 a month of rent to help offset your mortgage. And think of 203K like ice cream. So it's limited 203K, which is like your vanilla flavor, and it's faster, easier, up to $35,000 in repairs. And I see this being more used for like floors, paint, and HVAC. Cost that you know for sure is gonna be under $35,000. And I call it the vanilla because it's solid flavor, you know it's trustworthy, and you know you're gonna get the job done. And the standard 203K, and I call that the Neapolitan ice cream. So you got vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. I know, I keep using food analogies, which is actually making me very hungry too, but I'm gonna keep recording this. Anyways, the standard 203K, which means bigger projects, more flexibility, but it takes longer and requires a HUD consultant. That's like your project supervisor. And this could build an ADU, but it does take more work. So just being honest with you, to close on the home. So if the sellers are willing to be patient, so again, you have 10 pizza slices available, but only 2 people are hungry, meaning you have more power, the sellers can be patient, and that means you can have a great golden ticket. Okay, here's also the advanced play for FHA. It's the self-sufficiency test for 3 to 4 units. And I don't think many people actually know about this as they embark on their journey on buying multi-units. So let's say you have a 4-plex, okay? So that's 4 units, and the projected rent is $2,000 a month per unit. So 2,000 times 4 is 8,000. FHA says you have to multiply that by 75%, which is 6,000. So your total mortgage to pass the self-sufficiency test has to be less than that $6,000 that we just talked about in this hypothetical example. That's called the self-sufficiency test, and it only applies to 3 to 4 units. So if you pass that test, meaning your mortgage is below that 6,000 or whatever that magic number is, you can get FHA financing. But here's the catch. if a property cash flows that well, $2,000 a month in this hypothetical example, other investors would have been chopping at the bit trying to get that property because they're like, whoa, I can put 5, 10, 3.5% down, 20% down, and I could cash flow $2,000 to $5,000 a month, whatever the number is, right? They would have picked up that property right away. So when the market's hot, it's actually very tough to win that offer with FHA. In fact, in my past, let's call it from 2020 to 2023, it's been very difficult to get FHA for a 3 to 4 unit accepted. Because like I said, the home prices get bid up to the point that the mortgage doesn't break even, right? Fortunately, there's another outlet, it's called conventional. It's called another type of dessert, I should say, which doesn't have this test. But going back to FHA, because we're in a market where there's lots of pizza slices available and not as many hungry people, this could be your opportunity to finally get FHA accepted or to pivot to conventional because you're not competing with those investors that are putting all cash or 20, 30% down. Because like I said, there's a lot less of those people. Okay, well, what about condos and townhomes? Like if you're looking at lower priced homes, like condos or townhomes, there's one thing you must know. The HOA must be FHA approved. Let me let that sink in. The HOA also has to get approved for FHA financing. If it's not, you can request for something called a single unit approval, which is a little extra work, I should say. It's basically like FHA will approve just that unit, but it comes with stricter rules, comes with extra paperwork compared to a conventional loan. So like I said, if you're like adding all these T's and C's to your offer, and the other offer is like all cash, hey, we'll buy this right away and you'll close in 10 days. If you're in the seller's shoes, you're gonna be like, well, this is gonna be a lot of work and this is no work, right? I'd rather do that. This is like, you gotta do, abs and cardio for, if you're trying to lose weight for like 120 days, this one's liposuction done in 10, right? So which one are you gonna choose, right? So some agents and sellers may not wanna deal with that. But again, in a market with fewer buyers, they may not have a choice. So that's your opportunity. And a little side quest here, whenever one of our clients submits an offer and it's FHA for a condo and townhome, I proactively attach this. It's a comparison of FHA single unit approval versus conventional financing. So whenever the real estate agent sees this and shares this with their sellers, it helps provide a lot of confidence that you're in good hands. And remember, you can grade your mortgage advisor on who they know and what they know. All right, the market is changing, and in 2025, you actually have a chance to use all the benefits that FHA has to offer, even in competitive scenarios like multi-units and homes with ADUs. So let's move on to the biggest myths people still believe about these loans. FHA loans get a bad rap, and if you've spent 5 minutes on real estate TikTok or Facebook groups, you've probably heard at least one of these myths. And I know this because I've seen it too. So let's clear the air. Myth number 1, FHA loans are only for first-time homebuyers. Not true at all. FHA loans are available to anyone who meets the guidelines, even if it's your second or third, 15th home, as long as it's your primary residence. First-time homebuyers often use FHA, and that is true, so I think that's where the confusion comes from, but it's not a requirement. You can even reuse the FHA loan in the future. You just can't have 2 active FHA loans unless you meet a very rare exception. I've done this twice in my career. It's very rare. It's like if your work is forcing you to relocate, that's the rare exception. Myth number 2, FHA means you're a weak buyer. This comes with outdated thinking, in my opinion. Listing agents sometimes assume FHA equals low credit and broke buyers, right? Which is kind of sad to think about. And it means they're worried about the shaky approval as well. And I've always thought about this from the seller's perspective, which I think educating the listing agent, the ones representing the sellers, is actually a very important role of your mortgage advisor. It's not like these sellers care where the money comes from. The money's the money. They just want the money to hit their account on time, AKA super high certainty. And here's the reality. You can use FHA with strong income, and you can still put down 10, 20, 15% down for FHA. You don't have to just put 3.5% down. And you can have a 740 plus credit score and choose FHA on purpose. In fact, some buyers use FHA strategically to get better interest rates, and you can get more seller credits with FHA, up to 6% of the purchase price, whereas conventional could be 3, 6, or even 9%, but it depends on your down payment. But FHA, you could put 3.5% down and get up to 6% in credits, meaning the sellers cover your closing costs, which could be very helpful in a time like this. And again, you can put as little as 3.5% down. Myth number 3 is FHA is always worse than conventional. I would say FHA is different, not worse. Think of a mortgage like a balloon. It's like you squeeze one part, and let's say you get a better interest rate, but the pressure might just pop out somewhere else, like you need a higher down payment or tougher credit requirements, right? So conventional loans might look better in one area, like the balloon, like not having mortgage insurance forever, but they also expect higher credit scores, bigger down payments, and tighter debt to income limits. FHA loans, on the other hand, are more flexible. For example, if your credit score is from 580 to 680, you could put 3.5% down. If your DTI or debt to income is on the higher side, you're still good. If you want to buy a multi-unit in house hack, you can do that as well. So instead of asking which loan is worse, I would ask your mortgage advisor, which loan fits my situation the best? Myth number 4, you can't win offers with FHA. In hot sellers market, this was kind of true, but in 2025, like I talked about earlier, with more sellers than buyers and fewer multiple offer situations, FHA is becoming much more competitive again. Plus, if you know how to write a strong offer by closing faster than the average in your market, usually that's 10 to 21 days. 21 to 30 is kind of like the norm, and the average right now across the nation is 42 days. So again, if you can get the sellers paid in 2 to 3 times faster, remember, the analogy I gave was like working out on abs. You have to do all the hard work, eat, diet for 6 months, or you do liposuction. Which one do most people choose? Some people choose the work, some people choose the liposuction, but if you want convenience, liposuction is the way, right? And what you want to do is ask your mortgage team if they can pull this off, because faster money can beat more money, especially if the sellers are in a need to sell. Myth number 5, FHA equals permanent mortgage insurance. So this one's a little tricky, but it's not the full story. So yes, if you put less than 10% down, FHA mortgage insurance sticks around for the life of the loan. But in reality, how many people keep the mortgage for 30 years? It's pretty rare, because you tried to pay off the mortgage faster using like 13 payment strategies, paying extra more towards principal, refinancing, stuff like that, right? So again, you can always refinance into a conventional loan later. And if you put 10% down up front, mortgage insurance drops after 11 years, which, don't get me wrong, is a very long time. So I'd actually use the other option, which is use FHA to acquire the property, then refinance to conventional. What I'd rather have us start thinking about is this: if I get an FHA loan accounting for average appreciation in my market, which you can get from your real estate agent, what would my mortgage payment be, assuming that transition? And let's just use this as an example, 5 years, assuming 3% appreciation. And again, you can get all that info from your mortgage advisor. And if they're not supplying that information, you have a who problem, not a what problem. Now, to be agnostic or unbiased, everyone's situation is different, but here's a simple way I like to break it down when I'm helping clients make their decision. So we have path 1, which is wait 5 years and save that 20% down. We have path 2, which is buy now with FHA and then refinance at 10 to 15% equity. And then we have path 3, which is buy now with FHA, but then wait to refinance at 20% equity. So basically it's continue to save, which is path 1. Path 2 is you buy with FHA and then you refinance soon. And then path 3 is you buy with FHA and then you refinance later. So what your mortgage advisor will help you with is, okay, based on the average appreciation and the information that I know, if we go path 1, you're gonna basically buy it at $600,000, because if the house is $500,000 today, it's probably gonna be $600,000 5 years from now, depending on your market, etc., right? But the benefit is you're gonna have no mortgage insurance, but there is gonna be opportunity costs, I should say, meaning you're not gonna build equity over time, but if that's not important to you, then you're all good. Path 2, which is gonna be you bought the house at $500K, because that's the example that we're using. You can lower your MI later and you're gonna gain a little bit of equity, right, over time. Path 3, which is the buy now with FHA and refi later. You bought it at $500K, you have no mortgage insurance later, and you gain more equity over time as well. So here's the question you can ask yourself: do I believe home prices in my area will go up in the next 3 to 5 years? If it's no, continue to save. If it's yes, build a plan for path 2 or 3. And what I loved about this is you go from analysis paralysis to seeing what the next step is. And by the way, if you're in California or Texas and need help with an FHA loan, check out my guidance meeting that's free. And yes, you get to talk to me and get practical advice. All right, now that we've cleared up some of the biggest myths around FHA loans, let's talk about what it actually takes to qualify and where I see tiny mistakes that could cost you big. Getting approved for an FHA loan isn't rocket science, but there are a few key numbers you need to know. First one is residency. Let's start with something big that just happened. As of May 2025, HUD updated its rules. To qualify for an FHA loan going forward, only US citizens and permanent residents are eligible for FHA. That means DACA recipients, asylum seekers, and other non-permanent residences are no longer eligible. So even if you have a valid Social Security number and work authorization, you can't get FHA financing, again, if you fit in that box. So if you're a US citizen or permanent resident, this won't really affect you at all. But if you're unsure about your status, it's definitely very critical to find that out before applying for an FHA loan. Second is credit score. FHA allows a 580 credit score or higher for 3.5% down. But if you have a 500 to 579, you do have to put 10% down. If you're below 500, you're technically not eligible. But I would say if you're in that 500, maybe 500 to 579, that's where I always like to look at, like, what are some of the low-hanging fruit that we can, chop off and have your score jump up as fast as possible. So those are usually like the things that I look at if you're kind of in that 5 to 579 range. But here's the catch. Most lenders want to see at least a 620 credit score, even though FHA technically allows a 580. That's called lender overlays. So think of it like this. FHA sets the speed limit, but your lender decides how fast they're comfortable letting you drive. Third is debt to income. Now let's talk about one of the biggest deal breakers for FHA approvals. It's how much your income is going to debt. Now there's two ratios you want to look at, and that's what lenders look at too, which is front end debt to income, or DTI, means housing only, meaning it's maxed at 47%. It's actually 46.99, but like I said, we like to keep things simple. So again, that's housing payment only divided by your income. Back end DTI, or back end debt to income, means housing plus all your other debts like cars, credit cards, student loans, personal loans, all that good stuff. The maximum there is 57% or 56.99. And here's an example. Let's say you're making $10,000 a month. And again, I'm just using this as an example for easy math. And then 47% of that is $4,700. So that's your max housing budget. If you have, let's say, $1,000 of debt, like credit cards, etc., your back-end debt to income is 57% now. Next is your down payment. FHA down payments start with 3.5% down, even if you're buying a second time. So here's some quick math on the screen. You have $300,000 house, a $500,000 house, and $700,000 house, and those are the down payments. You'll also want 2 to 4% extra for closing costs. As first-time home buyers, you might be like, why is there such a huge range in closing costs? It's actually because it depends on the day of closing, month of closing, who the escrow or title company is going to be, which is usually chosen by the sellers, by the way, and the price point. And as a little bonus, you can actually use gift funds from your family or assistance programs for some of this or all of this. Next is loan limits. In 2025, FHA loan limit caps vary by location. You have a baseline of $498,000 and change. And in high cost area, think Los Angeles, Hawaii, New York, etc., that's up to $1,150,000-ish and change. And if you want to find your exact amount, this is what I always recommend. Just use Google and type in FHA loan limits and then put in your county, or you can ask your lender to confirm. Okay, so you meet the credit, income, and DTI requirements, but there's one more piece people forget to plan for, which is mortgage insurance. And if you don't understand how it works, it could actually cost you way more than it needs to. FHA loans come with something called Mortgage Insurance Premium, or MIP. It's not optional, but it is manageable. And I'll show you the rule of thumb in this section when comparing FHA to conventional. First, there are two types of MIP, Mortgage Insurance Premium. There's the upfront MIP. This is 1.75% of the loan amount. This is very important to know. Most people just roll that into their loan, so you're not having to pay that out of pocket. So for example, if your loan is $400,000, that's about $7,000 added to your loan balance. So you want to make sure you're aware of that and you're not caught off guard. So again, this gets added to your loan amount. So that's why when you buy a home with an FHA, you'll see a higher loan amount. Second is monthly MIP. Usually that's 0.55% per year, depending on your down payment, but it's going to be 0.55% worst case. And that's about, let's call it $183 a month on a $400,000 loan. It actually used to be 0.85% per year. So it's actually got reduced down quite a bit. So here's the rule of thumb if you're comparing conventional with FHA. Again, you want to make sure your mortgage advisor compared both options for you, but this is like if you want to DIY it. So what you want to do is add the FHA rate plus 0.55%, which is your monthly MIP. So let's say you have a 5% rate for FHA. Again, this is just an example. This is not your interest rate. This is just an example. You want to do 5% plus the 0.55%. So that's 5.55%. That's your rough annual rate. And let's say conventional is at 5.5% and mortgage insurance is at 0.4%. So you add that together, that's 5.9%. So 5.55 is less than 5.99. So I would more than likely lean towards FHA in this scenario. if this was just in a vacuum, right? Again, there's other variables that we have to be mindful of, like how to be competitive, how long do you plan on being in the house, and do you plan on doing any renovations? But I use that rule of thumb to get into the warmer direction and help down select the options. Now you might be wondering, how long does FHA mortgage insurance last? I kind of alluded to earlier that it depends on your down payment. If you put less than 10% down, MIP lasts for the life of the loan. If you put 10% down or more, it drops off after 11 years, which yes, it is a very long time. But here's the strategy. You don't even have to keep your FHA loan forever. You can refinance into conventional later and remove your mortgage insurance once you hit a certain equity point of 20%. You can even do it sooner, like I mentioned. So what I like to think about mortgage insurance is like training wheels on a bike. It helps you get started sooner technically, even if you're not quite ready to ride on your own. So once you've built enough equity, or let's call it speed, you can take off the training wheels and keep moving. So sure, you might be able to ride faster technically without the training wheels, right? But that could take you many years, I should say, of saving for a bigger down payment. And that's the whole point of mortgage insurance. It lets you enter the race sooner rather than waiting in the sidelines trying to perfect your balance. And all you got to figure out is, what would you rather do? Would I rather get in the race sooner, or be okay having to ride the bike faster once I enter the race? Now, don't get me wrong, I met some clients that jump a few steps ahead, right? They're able to jump in the market and just run really fast or ride really fast. It reminds me of Edwin, one of my clients. Like, he didn't have much money saved up when I met him, and then bam, he had like well over $300,000 saved up. He got better education, higher paying job, and was just ruthlessly saving and was, lowering his housing expense as much as possible, I should say. He went from not riding a bike to like a brand new Ducati, ready to race past like the whole real estate market. So that's where you want to choose, like where are your strengths, and then you kind of choose a path there. Okay, this is where smart buyers separate themselves, like Edwin, because if you understand how FHA treats income in 2025, it's like skating to where the puck is going. FHA allows a wide range of income types. You have W-2 salary, hourly, overtime, bonus, RSU, seasonal income, commission income, retirement, disability, all these other stuff, right? But when you break it down, it really boils down into two different buckets. So you have stable income, and then you have varying income, which varies per week, per month, etc. When it comes to stable income, like a salary, you can actually use that full-time pay today. So what probably happened to you is in 2023, 2024, and 2025, your salary may have increased over time. So you can actually use your monthly income today, like I mentioned. So maybe it was $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month, and $7,000 a month. Lenders will allow you to use that $7,000 a month if it's considered full-time, keyword, for your industry. So for a nurse, that's usually 72 hours per paycheck, or 80 hours for most others. For the varying income, this is where FHA is pretty strict with wanting 24 months of history of using that varying income. So again, it's varying income for that specific type. So basically, it doesn't mean like if I have overtime, bonus, and RSU over 2 years, I can kind of like pick and choose. It's overtime for 24 months, bonus for 24 months, RSU, etc., right? And seasonal income. So let's say in 2023, 24, and 25, that was $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, and $3,000 a month, right? Unlike full-time pay, you have to do what's called an average for those months. So in this scenario, 23, 24, and 25, it would be part of 25, by the way. You would average that over the past few years. There are a few exceptions. If you have less than 24 months, you might be able to use it, but it may require the lender to go back even further in your employment history. So here's the rule of thumb I like to remember. 24 months of varying income, you're good to go. From 12 to 23 months, have your mortgage advisor look at this with a fine-tooth comb. Under 12 months, try to qualify without the varying income. If you're self-employed or 1099, here's what you need. FHA wants to see 2 years of filed tax returns and a year-to-date profit and loss statement. Now, this one trips people up quite a bit when they go through the process. So there's lots of templates out there. So if you search profit and loss template, or if you use QuickBooks, it should be able to generate pretty quickly. So make sure you fill that out with your accurate information. And so here's what lenders care about. It's not your gross profit, it's your net profits plus other add backs. I call it EBITDA plus. So earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, plus any FHA add backs like business mileage. So whenever in doubt, if you see two income numbers on your tax returns, the lender will probably use the lower one. Now here's something that I'm watching very closely. With the big beautiful tax bill that was just passed, we can see certain types of income like tips, overtime, hazard pay become non-taxable under the new tax structure. If that happens, FHA lenders may start allowing more of that income to be grossed up, meaning if I earn $1,000 a month in non-taxed income, they might actually put in $1,150 or more towards what you can qualify for, right? So it's basically like getting more bang for the buck. So this could be a big win for service workers, nurses, hospitality, hourly roles that rely on a lot of variable income. Now, something to be mindful of is there's tax guidelines and then there's lender guidelines. So although this type of income won't be taxed until FHA or HUD says all lenders can now calculate this tip income with this new income structure, you have to use the prior method. So subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date with that info. Okay, let's talk strategy in the bonus round. I call this the FHA Acquisition Strategy. This is for someone who doesn't just want to buy one home, they want to buy 2 homes in the next 5 years. Here's how to do it. Step 1, buy a home with FHA low down, which means low barrier. So let's say you use an FHA loan to buy your first home. You only need 3.5% down, which means you don't need to save up forever. So that frees up cash to do something smart, which we'll talk about in a second. If the payment's too high for you, which I totally understand because low down payment means higher payment, house hack and rent it out to tenants. If you're renting a place with roommates right now, this should be a no-brainer because you're already having roommates. Some of you watching this don't want to have roommates, but if your goal is stronger than the pain, then I would make this a viable path. Because just remember, it's not forever, it's just for now. And I did the same exact thing, and looking back, I would definitely do it again. I don't have roommates anymore, which is great, but in that short stint, it flew by really quickly. Step 2 is renovate it, force the value up. Now, let's say your home's a little outdated. You can paint it, update the floors, maybe redo the kitchen, and bam, the value goes up. You can use that 203K loan that we talked about. Remember that vanilla or Neapolitan flavored ice cream? Now that's called forced appreciation. You force the home value to be worth more by making it better. Now there's 2 ways for your home value to go up, which is passive appreciation, which is you just buy and wait and let the market do its thing. And then there's forced appreciation. You fix it up and increase the value yourself. Now the magic actually happens when you combine the 2 together, and I call that max appreciation. Step 3 is refinance and drop your mortgage insurance or lower your rate. Once your home is worth more and you've built equity, you can refinance into a conventional loan. So why does this matter? You get rid of your FHA mortgage insurance, so into a conventional mortgage insurance, or completely remove it. And if rates go down, you lower your monthly payment too. So that's kind of like a double whammy. You get less mortgage insurance plus a less rate equals more cash flow for you. If rates have increased since you purchased and it doesn't make sense to refinance, just keep it as FHA. Step number 4, buy property number 2 with conventional, and then you start the snowball. So why not just keep using FHA over and over again? It's because FHA has some tricky rules where you need 25% equity in your home, and then the next house needs to be over 100 miles away if you want to use rent from your current place to help you qualify for the next place. Okay, so this is the key word. Conventional doesn't have these rules. So you can literally want to buy a house in a month, even though you have your current house, right? And you supply a lease agreement to the lender. There's other documents that you need, but that's kind of the gist of it. You use that lease income that you supply to help qualify for the next home, and you keep that snowball rolling without any rental experience and without that rent having to be on your tax returns. All right, let's crystallize the learnings. Number 1 is FHA Property Comeback. In 2025, sellers are saying yes again to FHA loans. 2 is Mythbusters, debunking the 5 biggest FHA myths, like FHA is always worse than conventional. 3, FHA Loan Requirements, the exact credit, DTI or debt to income, and down payment numbers you need to qualify in 2025. Number 4 is Mortgage Insurance Premium, how to manage FHA mortgage insurance and use it as a tool. Number 5 is your income rules. We talked about stable versus varying income, how those are 2 different buckets, and how to calculate it. Number 6 is your bonus, FHA Acquisition Strategy. Use FHA to buy, renovate, refinance, and then snowball your way to 2+ properties. As always, I try to put everything into making the best videos in the mortgage space. If you like this, please like, subscribe, and comment what you want to watch next. Also, now you know everything about FHA loans, so check out my Smart Saving Playbook and learn how to save smarter so you can get your down payment faster. So click here. I'll see you there. This is Nathan signing out.